in 2020, we saw similar things. What is happening now in 2024? The NPP, once again, they are gone inaugurating the Flower Pot interchange. Tomorrow, they are going to inaugurate the Apakadan stretch of the railway development area. We are told of Agenda 111. Today, there was the inauguration of 80 new educational infrastructure across the country. I mean, infrastructure has become a big topic in our politics. The more
reason why it's going to be our main discussion for today. Do this infrastructure influence voters in any way?
So that's the question we are asking. The question really influenced me as an electorate who lives in an area which is development. For example, yesterday I was driving where I usually use the Flower Pot area. It takes you about 2 hours to cross. I mean, yesterday
it was a smooth ride.
I was so happy. It's just like the Circle Dubai when it was inaugurated in 2016.
Let's get some understanding of this infrastructure and which roles they play when it comes to election. Let's speak to Kojo Oppong. Kojo Oppong is Minister for Works and Housing. He's the Vice Chair of the NPP Manifesto Committee, and in the capacity to speak on these particular issues, we are discussing. Kojo, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Ami, and to your colleagues and your viewers as well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Kojo, few days or few weeks to election, we've seen a number of, commissionings and inaugurations. Many people have asked the timing. Why is government waiting some few weeks to election before inaugurating these projects or commissioning this project? Is it for vote buying?
I think first we should ask ourselves whether or not it is a fact that these projects have been completed and have been sitting and waiting for this time for inauguration for the purposes of election, or commissioning for the purposes of election. And if we ask that question and examine those facts, we'll realize that that is not the case. In fact, for many of these projects, they are now reaching a completion point. Governments are elected for 4 years. They will spend about the first year trying to put ministers in place and a government in place. It's in your second year that you really have got budgets that you are using to administer programs. So even if you start projects in your second year, some of these projects will take this while, especially for the heavy infrastructure projects. It will take this while before you get to completion. So I don't think it is a fact that these projects have been finished and are waiting and it's been delayed towards elections. No, the reality is that many of these projects are now being completed. In fact, if you look at what's happened at the Flower Pot overhead area, you will notice that in the run-up to the inauguration, they were working day and night to be able to complete it because it had not been completed. So I think that fact can be dealt with. But, following the conversation, the impact of these commissionings on the election is a little different from the question of the impact of delivering infrastructure on people's voting decisions. And I think we can treat both and see if we can arrive at a point. Now, if you look at the issues, if you poll the issues that are informing people's decision in this election, you will find that across the country, one of the constituency-specific issues that pops up always at the top is infrastructure. So it's understandable that people are demanding a lot of infrastructure, despite a lot of work that has empirically been done on infrastructure. There's always a demand for some more infrastructure. So it stands to reason that both the ruling party and the opposition party will make infrastructure a major conversation point. And for the ruling party, they will have to demonstrate that they have lived up to the infrastructure question or promise, and for the opposition, they will try to make the case that you haven't lived up to it, and so people should vote you out. And therefore, for the ruling party, if there are infrastructure projects that are being completed around this time, it stands to reason that as part of the various efforts to send a message to the public that you have delivered, you are delivering, and you will deliver if you are giving another opportunity. If there are projects that are ready for completion and commissioning, you would obviously do so. But I don't think anybody should live under the impression that commissioning of projects, and here I'm answering that final specific question, that commissioning of projects alone in the weeks leading up to the election will do any magic. It just forms part of a plethora of activities that you will embark upon in a bid to send a message to the public that this particular political tradition has delivered, is delivering, and will deliver on the most important thing to you.
All right, Kojo, there are others who have also, made this argument that in 2016, when John Mahama was president, there were a series of these inaugurations and commissioners, but yet it didn't materialize the votes. The NDC and John Mahama lost in that election, and so is the NPP now also, working on the same path? May suffer a similar fate if care is not taken with this speed in inauguration.
Well, but that's why I've tried to differentiate between commissionings and delivering infrastructure generally. Now, these commissionings form part of a general set of activities aimed at convincing the public that you have delivered or you are delivering and you will deliver on infrastructure. And what I'm saying to you is that if over the 4-year period you haven't delivered much on infrastructure and you wait till the tail end to try and commission 4 or 5 projects with a view of convincing the public will not be fooled by it. If over the 4-year period you have delivered on infrastructure, and we have put out the data on the about 12,000 kilometers of roads that we have done since 2017.
But on roads, the NDC has challenged that particular assertion. I've heard John Mahama challenging, Asenso Boachi on that particular thing. I mean, challenging the president.
That's fine.
On that
that's fine. I've also heard John Mahama saying that he started free SHS. So it's not about what John Mahama says. You, for example, as an independent media house, can pick the data of the 12,000 kilometers of roads that we have put out, that we have delivered in this 7.5-year period, and you can verify and tell your audience. So that is not a debate between, let's say, myself and John Mahama, because John Mahama says a lot of things that over the period you'll find out is not exactly the case. But I don't want to make this conversation partisan. I'm saying that we have put out data on the 12,000 kilometers of roads over the period, commissioned various road projects. In my constituency, for example, we've done about 8 or 9 major roads, some of which did not even exist. We've done them, we've tagged them. If we've delivered this over the period, and 3 weeks to the election, we commission 1 more project, the public knows that these guys have been delivering, and this is just part of a bigger exercise of delivering. If we haven't done anything at all, and in the last minute we come and we try to commission 1 or 2 or 3 projects, then the public will not be fooled by it. So I'm saying to you that the commissionings are just part of a bigger track record. If your track record on infrastructure speaks well for you, then the commissionings will just help to be the icing on the cake. If your track record on infrastructure does not speak well for you, then it will be an exercise in futility. And we believe that if you look at, today you are seeing some of the new universities that, photos, videos are popping up. Today, for example, about the 80 new schools that are being commissioned are not the only schools that we have done since 2017. In fact, again, in my own constituency, you see work that has been done on dormitory blocks, science blocks, etc. So the people have seen what has been done over the years, and now they are seeing what is going on in the final stretch. So the answer is not about what you do in the last 2-3 weeks. It's about what you have done over the period that the public will assess and make a determination.
Yes, Kojo, let's move away from the inauguration and commissioning. We have about 3 weeks to an election. Your party and your candidate has been crisscrossing the country, engaging voters and electorate on what he promises to do. And infrastructure is one of the things which has come out clearly in his promises. We've seen your manifesto and how much you've put on infrastructure. Can you tell us, in the coming 4 years, what is an NPP government, if elected into government, going to do in terms of infrastructure outside what you have already done?
So every district has its infrastructure needs. And then you have infrastructure needs that cut across districts. The challenge really is not the engineering. The challenge is the financing. The science, the construction, civil engineering, quantity surveying, there's enough of it in the system that can do our roads, build our markets, build our schools, build our hospitals. That's not the problem. The problem is how to pay for it. Now, what governments have suffered over the years, and here I will speak for the NPP and the NDC and all other parties, is that you make the commitment and then you need the financing to pay for it so that the contractors can be on the project and finish these projects in good time. The challenge has been in getting financing for it. And that is why very often you will find that for the projects that move the fastest, they are financed by loans. Because those are, EPC projects, they are ring-fenced, they can make the money available, and the contractor just keeps going to the very end. Sometimes when they have a few challenges in project management, then these projects stall. The majority of the projects that don't get delivered in terms of infrastructure is because these projects are often financed from the normal tax basket. And so you are waiting month on month for tax revenue to come in so that you can be servicing the needs of your contractors. So what you're looking for is a leader who has a different model of financing, because the old model of financing that we've worked with since 1957 has created major challenges in project delivery for both the NPP and the NDC. Now, for us in the NPP, our model is to go heavily PPP, and is to bring in the private sector and make a lot of infrastructure projects available to the private sector to deliver on concession basis, and then spread out the payment on the national expenditure tables over a medium term. Now, what that does is that it allows us to get more projects upfront without financing challenges, because it's not government that is pre-financing them or underwriting the front-loaded finance. So you get the project upfront quicker, and then government pays over a period. Now, in government paying over a period, what you've also done is that you are freeing up the pressure on the fiscals, the pressure on the national expenditure tables. And so if you look into our manifesto, when we did our modeling, we said we can take away about 3% of GDP of expenditure. So we can cut about 3% of GDP of expenditure on our expenditure tables and hand it over to the private sector as concessions to do. There are major road projects that you can give to the private sector to design, finance, execute, and toll and collect their money back, without doing it, or instead of doing it in the old model where the government will try to raise the money, give a contract, struggling to pay the contractors over a period. So the major thing we're going to be doing in the area of infrastructure is not reinventing the civil engineering and the quantity surveying aspect of it, but it's re-engineering the financing. And by cutting away 3% of GDP from our national expenditure and giving it to the private sector as opportunities, we're of the view that they can then deliver these properties or these projects, and then what government will do under these concession arrangements is to pay for them over a period, either from the national treasury or they take their money in a regulated manner from the general market. Now, this is not a new idea. There are countries in which this has been done. As part of our manifesto work, we had the opportunity to visit and see some of these things. You take Kenya, for example. They built a new highway from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport into the heart of Nairobi. And it was financed through PPP. And today when you go there, they take their money from users of that, which is literally above the main road. And it's faster. It takes you just about 15 minutes to get into the heart of Nairobi itself. Go to the US. They've got the Easy Pass roads that are built with PPP financing and models. So you're able to deliver more projects at less front-loaded cost to the Republic, and you're able to pay for it over a period. Either the treasury is paying or the public is paying. You tidy up your books and you deliver more projects. And in so doing, we'll be able to deliver a lot more projects in the various districts of this country on a consistent basis without having to truncate it. Number two, we also learned a lesson.
Number two, and wrapping up for me, for because you're racing against time. So if you guys 1.2 for me.
Yeah. We also learned a lesson from our $1 million per constituency initiative in the last 7 years. And what we decided to do is therefore to have a district budgeting component within the national budget, so that districts will also get some direct allocation into these districts for purposes of speeding up infrastructure projects that have to be done by central government.
Kojo, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah is the Vice Chair of the NPP Manifesto Committee and also the Minister for Works and Housing.